We start with a bog standard black bloke bollocking some fat fella about putting crisps in his sarnies. Because he's got a security guard test in a week, and gorging on crisp butties ain't really going to help him lose weight for his fitness exam. Anyway, turns out this uber organised and obsessive compulsive fella totally struggles with sleeping. So naturally, he goes over to his local diner to finish his book, where he soon befriends a teenage hooker, who doesn't really like her job that much given she has to keep shagging random fat slobs every night.
Bruh.
But she looks a bit roughed up when she comes in the next evening, so he takes pity on her and buys her supper, where we learn that his name is Robert McCall and her name's Alina, though her hooker name is Sparklefoof. Terry. Before they do, a bit of bonding, about how she dreams of being a singer and how he's a lonely widow and she. And after walking her home, she gets thrown into the back of a car by her pimps, who then bizarrely give their business card to Bobby and tells him that if he's got a problem with them abusing a teenage prostitute, then he can just go to www.keepittoyourfuckingself.com. Anyway, after a few days pass and he trains up that fat fella called Ralphie to pass his security guard exam, he gets pretty bummed when he realises his new teeny bopper buddy ain't around no more. Because turns out she's in the local hozzy after seemingly having been smacked up by her pimp Slavy and his gang of goons. So naturally, this Robert McCall fella just waltzes on in to their private brothel after following the address on the card they gave him the other night, and straight up offers to buy her freedom for a very specific $9,800. Cause I guess she just ain't worth a full 10 bags. But Slavy just laughs in his face and says he don't want to sell no stinking teen floozy's freedom to some random chocolate bloke, and just says keep your damn money, turn around where you came from and shut up about it already. But Robert McCall can't be having that, so he proceeds to open and shut their door a bunch of times after seemingly suffering an OCD flare-up, before then staring at their body parts in close angle shots and then slaughtering them all in under 30 seconds. Cause going around fraudulently selling teenage hookers virginities just ain't fucking on, son. Unfortunately, these goons were part of a much bigger syndicate of naughty baddies, and the chief enforcer of the Russian boss man meets up with the local crooked cops on their payroll. And this Teddy Renson fella soon goes on to prove how much of a scary badass he is by smacking up a little Irishman in a small shed. Elsewhere, Ralphie says he can't work at the local hardware store no more, because he has to stay and help his Spanish mum fix up her shop, given it recently caught fire in suspicious circumstances. But this Macaulay chap don't like to see his chunky chum so upset, and nor does he want to have wasted his time doing all that training just for Ralph not to be able to take that shitty test. So he hangs around for a bit, and discovers that a pair of crooked cops are operating some kind of naughty racketeering operation in the local neighbourhood, and totally extorting his fat mate's Spanish mum. And they were also the ones what set her gaff alight when she failed to cough up the dough the other night. So naturally, he goes full vigilante now he's got a taste for equalising thuggy goons again, and tells them that they better return all her money, or else he'll send a video what he's recorded of them totally doing all these bad things to the friggin' press and shit. Meanwhile, Teddy interrogates a ginger floozy and what she knows about that Terry bird who was seemingly friendly with the mysterious guy who slaughtered all their brothel staff. But she promptly lies to his face to protect her mate, and before you can say, there's a Lemuel, Robert's mate's Spanish mum does indeed get her cash back, whilst Ralphie now gets to return to his crappy shop job, where he has to lift small pots around all day and also carry on with that damn fitness regime.
No! God, please, no! No! No!
Anyway, this Teddy fella, who's defo no kind of cuddly teddy bear given his explosive temper and penchant for doing a bunch of bad things, proceeds to do yet another bad thing by killing an unarmed ginger after he discovers she lied to him to protect her battered friend.
You're such a bad person. Like, all the way through to your core.
The next day, Robert is over the moon that all his dietary advice and outdoor gym sessions paid off and his mate has become a bona fide security guard. But unfortunately, Ralphie's celebrations don't last too long when Bob and his colleague get mugged in broad daylight on his first day on the fucking job. And said female colleague is pretty bummed that that hooded thug totally teethed her dead mum's ring. But luckily, Robbie Boy's totally retrieved it off screen and left it in her till for her. And before you can say, he's just bloody lucky that no one else got to that register before her, Teddy turns up at his gaff and pretending to be the local plod, whilst passively aggressively trying to figure him out, before getting back in his car and doing some casual racialisms by telling his mate that everything about that chocolate geezer is wrong.
Damn!
So his team of corrupt coppers start looking into this Robert McCall fella, and turns out he was a former US Marine and Defence Intelligence agent, who totally faked his death in a supposed bombing incident years ago and is now living off the grid. Was some shit. So, because Teddy totally wants him taken alive, they do a straight up hate crime by ambushing a middle-aged unarmed black man in his local diner. But the mobster ain't got time for that, so starts looking at his adversary's body parts in slow motion again before instantly eating him on a small table. And spotting Teddy and his crooked cops waiting outside, he has the sheer cojones to just waltz up to his arch enemies and take a bunch of pictures of them right in front of their face. God, talk about having big brass balls. And we're talking
chocolate salty balls.
So they then rock up to his house to totally get him good and proper for humiliating him like that and then presumably mocking them on Snapchat and shit. And given he's busy tending to a wound on his leg, it soon looks like it's curtains for the #1 equaliser in all of Boston. But in a shocking twist, what no one could ever see coming. Turns out the obsessively ordered and always prepared ex-US Marine is one step ahead of these clowns, and is actually hiding out in a dark apartment across the street, where he's totally spying on them in his own house and hilariously listening to them complimenting his cleanliness. Anyway, he then visits his old intelligence boss called Susan, who tells him that the mental foreign bloke following him around and choking out innocent gingers is an ex-secret police turned mercenary agent called Nikolai, who in turn works for Russian oligarch Vladimir Pushkin. And Bobby better be careful, because apparently he totally won't stop till he kills this ethnic minority bloke what works at the local hardware store. And worse, he's already killed 2 cops since he got here, and some fella called Detective Masters suspiciously ain't been seen for days. So Robert tracks down said Detective Masters fella and gasses him with fumes more noxious than my dad's body burps on Taco Bell night, before he's coerced into helping him take down one of Pushkin's laundering sites. And after stylishly disarming the head goon and then rubbing his warm shaft on his foe's warm shaft, steady, they soon equalise the naughty launderers real good and proper. And Robert even dishes out some severance payments to Pushkin sweatshop workers with his own dirty money. Now that's what I call equalising things. So after bollocking this corrupt Masters fella for disrespecting the badge and helping the Russians do a bunch of bad things all over the place, Robert soon confronts his arch nemesis in a fancy restaurant. And after Teddy totally refuses his offer to just walk away peacefully, he simply asks him, "When you look at me, what do you see?" And before he can say, a generic genre cliche in a dodgy B movie who also looks a bit like a sociopathic Kevin Spacey, or I guess just a regular Kevin Spacey in that case, Teddy calls him a, quote, sentimental nihilist, whatever that means. But McCall just shrugs and says, well, at least I'm not a genre cliche, before proceeding to prove said statement by walking in front of a giant fuck-off explosion in slow motion.
Nice.
Turns out he's destroyed Pushkin's oil tankers, and so naturally, Teddy gets a right bollocking from his Russian-y boss for not shutting up and taking out that middle-aged shop worker already. Later, Ralphie, the new head security guard, has seemingly fucked up a second time and still can't do his one job properly, because now the baddies have broken into his store and taken a bunch of hostages and shit. And Teddy demands that Robert come to meet them at the oil field in 30 minutes, or else there's going to be a load more useless tools laid out all over his store floor.
LOL!
So Robert thinks screw that and heads on out to save the hapless saps, before promptly rescuing his portly pal what fucking loves a crisp butty. And said paunchy pal just can't believe that his humble colleague, who's also his dietitian and personal trainer, secretly moonlights as a vigilante what loves equalising people, who then tasks Ralphie with getting all the hostages to safety, despite him spending the majority of his short time as head of security letting people get put into serious danger and shit.
No!
Anyway, McCall then does some more equalising, given the baddies outnumber him 10-1, and after reducing the number of said goons to a more equivalent level, including lobotomising the poor fella, Ralphie then redeems himself by coming back to save his buddy's butt, before getting himself shot up for his troubles, as Robert then tells him to get the heck out of Dodge whilst busting out his trusty nail gun, and eventually nailing the naughty ginger hooker killer, and rather literally. And I guess he can now consider himself well and truly equalised, son. A few days later, and we cut to Moscow, where we find Robert McCall sitting in a dark corner and creepily watching a nudie naked bloke take a shower. Turns out this is that Vladimir Pushkin fella what ordered everyone to do all them bad things in his town. And before you can say, I think you're about to get equalised, son, the equaliser soon gets his equalising on and totally equalises his pasty ass. Before striding out the gaff like a total legend, as we see how this straight up vigilante serial killer has totally equalised the whole friggin' house, and even equalised people up the fucking walls, son.
Oh, hell no!
And we end with Robert running into that teenage Terry / Alina ex-hooker bird, who's now out of the whoring game and totally all cleaned up and shit. Because she's got a normal job now, and has become so cultured she's even bought a small book from a charity shop. And speaking of, there was also a mysterious envelope containing 10 grand in cash in a hospital room when she woke up. So she's now got a fresh start and can be whoever she wants to be. Like a bad club singer perhaps. Or maybe an even more expensive whore, but this time on her own terms. And Bobby just says, yeah, cool story bro. Before he's soon back in the diner and advertising his equalising services on Craigslist and shit. And that's it. That's the movie. Though my favourite part was when the equaliser did a bunch of equalising, which soon made me equalise in my fucking pants, son. But anyway, that's the plot and that's a lot. Considering that bell thing so you don't miss any future recaps. Tell me if you like this flick in the comments if you have time, and I'll equalise you in the next one.